If money always feels tighter than it should, even when you work hard, this conversation is meant for you today. Before we begin, gently tap. Like if financial stress has followed you into moments that were supposed to feel calm. Leave a comment below saying tight or okay, because naming the feeling helps more than pretending everything is fine. If someone you care about is quietly struggling with money, sharing this video can be an act of kindness, not advice. And if honest, calm conversations about money help you think clearly, consider subscribing for videos like this every week. My name is Max, and for a long time I looked financially stable on paper while constantly feeling broke inside. I had a decent income, paid my bills on time, yet one unexpected expense could still derail my entire month. Watching friends seem relaxed about money made me wonder why the same dollars felt heavier in my hands. It wasn't that I spent wildly or irresponsibly, it felt like life simply cost me more at every turn. Over time, I noticed something uncomfortable that most people never say out loud about being broke. Being broke is not just about having less money, but about being forced into worse, more expensive decisions. When you lack financial margin, every choice becomes urgent, and urgency quietly raises the price of everything. I saw this clearly through my cousin, who worked nonstop yet always seemed stuck financially. One small car repair pushed him into high-interest payments, turning a minor problem into months of stress. Meanwhile, someone with savings fixes the same issue calmly, paying once and moving on without anxiety. That contrast made something click for me, and it changed how I understood money forever. The real problem wasn't discipline or intelligence. It was the cost of having no room for mistakes. When you have no buffer, life charges you penalties simply for being unprepared, even when preparation is impossible. This is the math of being broke, and it quietly explains why everything feels unfairly expensive. Once you see this pattern clearly, you stop blaming yourself and start understanding the system you are inside. When money is tight, small problems never stay small because you are forced to solve them quickly. Speed feels necessary in those moments, but speed almost always costs more than patience ever does. People with savings can wait, compare options, and choose the cheapest long-term solution without panic. People without savings must choose whatever solution stops the pain immediately, regardless of future consequences. This difference alone explains why two people pay dramatically different prices for the same basic life needs. Think about interest rates, late fees, overdraft charges, and penalties that only appear when timing is wrong. These costs are not random. They systematically target people who lack financial breathing room. In America today, credit card interest rates often exceed 20%, punishing short-term survival decisions. Payday loans can reach extreme annual rates, trapping people in cycles that feel impossible to escape. None of this happens because borrowers are stupid. It happens because emergencies do not wait politely. When your car breaks down, you cannot negotiate with your employer about missing work indefinitely. You fix the car however you can, even if that decision quietly doubles the final cost. I watched my cousin take a high-interest loan just to stay employed, not to buy luxuries. From the outside, people judged his choices without ever seeing the pressure behind them. That judgment is common, but it completely misses the structural reality most struggling people face. Poverty is expensive not because of bad habits, but because every mistake carries amplified consequences. Without margin, you pay more for housing, transportation, healthcare, and even basic financial services. Each extra cost reduces your ability to save, reinforcing the very condition that caused it. This is how financial stress becomes a loop instead of a temporary phase for many households. Understanding this loop is the first step toward breaking it without shame or unrealistic expectations. Housing is one of the clearest examples where being broke quietly forces people to pay far more. Without strong credit or cash reserves, affordable housing options shrink dramatically and disappear quickly. Renters without savings often accept higher monthly rent as simply to secure shelter immediately. Missing one payment can trigger late fees, eviction threats, and added stress that compounds rapidly. Homeowners with savings can handle repairs calmly, while others delay maintenance until problems become emergencies. Emergency repairs always cost more than planned maintenance, yet emergencies dominate when money is tight. Transportation works the same way, especially in cities where reliable cars are essential for employment. People without savings buy cheaper vehicles that require frequent repairs, increasing total ownership costs over time. Those repairs rarely happen at convenient moments, forcing rushed decisions under intense financial pressure. Meanwhile, people with margin pay more up front but less overall because stability buys flexibility. Healthcare costs reveal this pattern even more painfully for families living paycheck to paycheck. Without savings, preventive care gets postponed until medical issues become urgent and significantly more expensive. Emergency room visits replace routine checkups, turning manageable problems into financial disasters. These outcomes are not moral failures. They are predictable results of financial scarcity. Scarcity changes how the brain processes risk, urgency, and long-term planning under stress. When survival feels uncertain, the mind prioritizes immediate relief over distant consequences automatically. This is not weakness. It is a biological response designed to protect you in emergencies. Unfortunately, modern financial systems exploit this response through fees, interest, and rigid rules. The result is a system where stability is rewarded and instability is quietly punished repeatedly. Seeing this pattern clearly helps replace self-blame with understanding and strategic patience. Once I understood this, I stopped asking why others seemed lucky and started asking better questions about money. Instead of chasing higher income immediately, I focused on building margin that reduced penalties first in life. Margin does not mean luxury. It means time to choose without fear, driving decisions every single day calmly. Even a small emergency fund can lower interest, fees, stress, and long-term damage significantly for families today. This is why saving feels slow but powerful, while debt relief feels urgent but expensive for most people. My cousin did not need motivation speeches, he needed breathing room to stop bleeding money every single month. Once he stabilized slightly, better decisions became possible without constant panic clouding judgment about everyday finances slowly again. This pattern repeats across millions of households, regardless of intelligence, effort, or moral character in America today alone. The system rewards those with margin by offering discounts, patience, and better options over time and stability overall. At the same time, it quietly penalizes urgency through fees, interest, and rigid deadlines for everyone involved financially. Understanding this does not fix everything, but it changes where you place your energy around money choices daily. Instead of self-blame, you can focus on slowly buying back flexibility step by step over time with intention. Flexibility lowers stress first, then costs, then finally creates space for growth in finances and personal life overall. This is why building margin is not glamorous, but it quietly changes everything about your life long term. You stop reacting constantly and start planning calmly, even when numbers are still small on paper today alone. That calm is not confidence from wealth, it is relief from reduced penalties and fewer emergencies over time. Most financial advice ignores this phase, jumping straight to investing and optimization before stability exists for many people. But optimization without stability often increases stress instead of improving real outcomes for struggling households across the country. This conversation is about acknowledging reality honestly, without shame, blame, or false promises about quick wealth online today. If this perspective helps you breathe easier, consider sharing it with someone who needs relief from money stress. Many people believe higher income automatically solves money stress, but income alone does not remove penalties. Without margin, a higher paycheck often just supports higher fixed costs and larger financial risks over time. This is why some families earning six figures still feel fragile when unexpected expenses appear suddenly. Stability comes not from income size, but from how much disruption your finances can absorb calmly. When disruption exceeds your buffer, every surprise becomes expensive, stressful, and emotionally exhausting quickly. I learned that financial peace starts when emergencies stop dictating every decision you make. That shift does not happen overnight, and it does not require perfection or extreme sacrifice. It begins with understanding which costs punish urgency and slowly reducing exposure to those penalties. Late fees, overdrafts, high interest, and rushed repairs all share one common trigger: no margin. Remove the trigger, and many expensive problems quietly lose their power over your life. This is why saving $1,000 can feel more powerful than earning $10,000 more annually. That small buffer protects you from the most common and damaging financial emergencies people face regularly. With protection comes clarity, and with clarity comes better decisions made under far less pressure. Better decisions compound slowly, reducing costs before increasing wealth in a sustainable, realistic order. Wealth rarely starts with investing. It usually starts with stabilizing chaos and reducing financial noise first. Once noise decreases, you regain mental space to plan, compare, and choose deliberately again. This mental space is invisible, but it changes how money feels in your hands every day. People who seem calm around money usually have margin, not secret tricks or superior discipline. Calm is a financial outcome, not a personality trait or moral achievement to admire. Understanding this helps you stop chasing calm through spending and start building it intentionally instead. When you finally experience stability, you realize how expensive instability was this entire time. You notice fewer fees, fewer emergencies, and fewer moments where panic drives financial decisions suddenly. This reduction feels subtle at first, but over months it creates measurable financial breathing room. Breathing room allows you to respond thoughtfully instead of reacting emotionally to every money challenge. That response pattern slowly rewires how you relate to risk, planning, and long-term financial thinking. Many people underestimate how much stress taxes their finances by shortening decision-making horizons dramatically. Stress pushes people toward quick fixes that solve today's pain while multiplying tomorrow's cost silently. Credit cards, buy now, pay later plans, and payday loans thrive in environments of chronic urgency. These tools promise relief but often deliver longer periods of financial pressure and anxiety. None of these products exist because people are reckless. They exist because emergencies are predictable. And wouldn't it nice? The system monetizes urgency efficiently, extracting value whenever people lack alternatives or negotiating power. Recognizing this helps remove shame from past choices made under intense financial pressure. Shame keeps people stuck, while understanding opens the door to realistic improvement. Improvement begins by reducing exposure to the most punishing costs, not chasing perfect optimization. This approach feels slower, but it produces lasting results instead of fragile short-term wins. My cousin's situation improved only after stopping the bleeding, not after increasing income immediately. Once penalties decreased, his paycheck suddenly felt larger without actually changing at all. That experience taught me how powerful stability can be, even before growth begins. Growth without stability often collapses under pressure, repeating the same exhausting cycle again. Stability creates the foundation where growth can finally stand without constant fear underneath. Once stability exists, even briefly, you notice how differently money problems show up emotionally. Problems feel solvable instead of overwhelming because urgency no longer controls every decision immediately. This emotional shift is subtle but critical for long-term financial recovery and consistent progress. Without constant panic, you can finally compare options, ask questions, and delay decisions safely. Delaying decisions often saves more money than any complex financial strategy promoted online today. People rarely talk about patience as a financial advantage, but patience requires margin to exist. When margin is missing, patience becomes a luxury you simply cannot afford. This explains why advice that sounds simple often feels impossible for people under financial pressure. Advice ignores context, assuming flexibility that many households simply do not have yet. Context determines cost, and cost determines whether progress is sustainable or constantly reversed. I learned to stop asking how to get rich faster and start asking how to stop losing money first. That question changed my priorities and reshaped how I approached every financial decision. Instead of chasing growth, I focused on reducing friction, penalties, and unnecessary financial stress. Reducing friction does not look impressive, but it quietly improves outcomes month after month. Each reduced fee, avoided penalty, or delayed emergency created space for the next improvement. Progress began stacking not because income changed, but because losses stopped compounding. This is how stability slowly transforms from fragile relief into dependable financial footing. Dependable footing allows planning beyond survival and toward meaningful long-term goals. Goals become realistic when fear recedes, not when motivation temporarily spikes. Financial health grows from consistency under calm conditions, not intensity during constant crisis. Most people never get taught this framework, so they assume constant struggle means personal failure. That assumption is dangerous because it keeps people focused on motivation instead of structural financial leverage. Motivation fades quickly under pressure, but structure quietly supports progress even on difficult days. Financial structure begins with margin, not spreadsheets, discipline hacks, or complicated investment strategies. Margin gives you the ability to say not yet instead of being forced to say yes immediately. That single delay often saves hundreds or thousands of dollars over time without dramatic effort. I noticed my stress decreasing before my numbers improved, which felt confusing but deeply reassuring. Reduced stress allowed me to think clearer, sleep better, and approach money with less emotional reactivity. This emotional stability made consistency possible, which matters far more than intensity in personal finance. Consistency compounds quietly, while intensity spikes briefly then collapses under pressure for most people. Many financial plans fail because they require constant discipline instead of designing for human limitations. Humans under stress default to survival mode, not optimal decision-making or long-term optimization. Good financial systems work with human behavior, not against it during moments of scarcity. When systems reduce penalties, people naturally make better choices without forcing themselves constantly. This is why margin is compassionate, not lazy or unambitious, despite what hustle culture suggests. Compassionate systems create resilience, allowing people to recover from setbacks instead of spiraling downward. Recovery speed matters more than avoiding mistakes entirely, especially in unpredictable economic environments. Everyone makes mistakes, but margin determines whether mistakes become lessons or lasting damage. Understanding this reframes your past without shame and your future with practical optimism. Optimism grounded in structure lasts longer than hope built only on willpower. At this point, the math becomes undeniable. Money problems accelerate faster when timing consistently works against you. Timing determines whether life events feel like minor inconveniences or financial disasters that echo painfully for years. People with margin experience delays as neutral events, while people without margin experience delays as financial punishment. This punishment appears through fees, interest, missed opportunities, and constant psychological pressure layered together. Over time, these pressures narrow available choices further, increasing dependence on expensive short-term financial solutions. The cycle continues not because effort is missing, but because recovery time keeps getting quietly stolen. Recovery time is invisible, yet it determines whether progress stabilizes or collapses repeatedly under pressure. When recovery time exists, mistakes shrink quickly instead of multiplying across months and difficult years. This explains why one setback feels survivable for some people and devastating for others. Survivability depends less on income level and more on available financial and emotional buffers combined. Buffers convert shocks into learning moments instead of permanent damage to long-term financial stability. Without buffers, even correct decisions can still lead to bad outcomes because timing offers no mercy. Recognizing this removes the illusion that success depends purely on effort, intelligence, or personal discipline alone. It replaces that illusion with a realistic model of risk, timing, margin, and structural financial advantage. Once you see this model clearly, you stop comparing yourself to others in unfair ways. Comparison fades because you understand how different starting conditions create dramatically different visible outcomes. This understanding brings clarity rather than comfort, but clarity is what enables sustainable financial change. Sustainable change begins by protecting future time, not forcing dramatic lifestyle overhauls under stress. Protecting time also protects money, emotional energy, and decision quality at the same time. This is the quiet math behind being broke and the real first step toward escaping it. If you have felt stuck for years, this explanation matters because it gives language to silent frustration. Feeling stuck does not mean you failed. It often means you have been paying invisible penalties repeatedly. Those penalties drain energy first, then money, then confidence, making progress feel permanently out of reach. Understanding this does not erase hardship, but it changes how you interpret your own story. When interpretation changes, shame loosens its grip and space for constructive action quietly appears. Constructive action starts small, focused on protection rather than dramatic transformation or risky leaps. Protection means fewer emergencies, fewer rushed decisions, and fewer moments where panic sets the price. Over time, those small protections accumulate into something that finally feels like stability. Stability does not feel exciting, but it feels safe enough to breathe and think clearly again. From that place, growth becomes possible without constantly risking collapse from the next surprise. This perspective is not about getting rich quickly, but about stopping unnecessary financial suffering first. Suffering often persists simply because people believe their struggle is personal instead of structural. Once that belief changes, people stop fighting themselves and start designing around reality. Designing around reality is how ordinary people quietly rebuild financial control without dramatic headlines. If this video helped you feel understood, that feeling alone already has real value. Feeling understood reduces isolation, which makes long-term change feel less overwhelming and more achievable. No one fixes money problems alone, even when the work itself feels deeply personal. Shared understanding creates momentum, especially for people who have carried financial stress silently. That is why this conversation matters beyond numbers, strategies, or advice lists online today. It reminds people they are not broken, just operating under costly conditions they never chose. If If you know someone quietly struggling with money, sharing this video can be a genuine act of care. Not to lecture them, but to help them see their struggle through a clearer, kinder lens. Understanding reduces shame, and reduced shame gives people the strength to take their next step. Sometimes the most helpful thing you can offer is clarity, not solutions or pressure. Share this with someone who needs relief today, and remind them they are not alone.